Good afternoon. I'm Heitor.
I'm João.
I'm Gustavo.
I'm Tomás.
I'm David.
And we are Team 23 from FGV. We are here to present our investment thesis on Vivara.
So first of all, what is Vivara?
Vivara is the most complete general retail in Brazil, betting on a multi-pronged strategy with a complementary portfolio in a very integrated business model that allows the company to reach all Brazilian states, focus on mall penetration and operational resilience, thanks to its high-performance sales team, access to fiscal benefits, and verticalization strategy.
This structure has allowed Vivara to achieve significant levels of growth, mainly through lights, banner, and digital, despite its low volume consistency, which we see with skepticism.
And what about ESG? When talking about the environmental pillar, it's undeniable that Vivara is placed within a sector with a negative track record and with sensitive points, especially regarding mining operations, which historically has been linked with war funding and with illegal operations in rainforests. However, we see that Vivara is taking concrete actions to mitigate risks, betting especially on circular economy operations to enhance sustainability.
Social matters are not dispensable as well. The company has social matters are not dispensable as well.
Well, when it comes to governance, however, we see this still as a fragile point. With a familiar governance structure, Vivara does not dismiss efforts to mitigate risks, with great performance on metrics such as independence rate and diversity. However, there are still some warning signs, materialized by the recent change in the shareholders' agreement involving members of the Kaufman family.
So we see Vivara well positioned in ESG matters, with good perspective for the future. So, what is our investment recommendation?
Is a hold. Based on our DCF methodology, we arrive at 25 reais per share for Vivara stocks, with a potential upside of only 14%, exposing our concern regarding Vivara's future and also the low margin of safety. For our hold, we are based on four main pillars, starting with the challenging industry that we see that Vivara is facing amid its brands.
The sector has underperformed Brazilian economy, with growth mostly driven by prices rather than volume. In addition, we see a declining watch industry, what makes us concerned about Vivara's first-part business.
By creating a 5-product basket, we see that the prices are homogeneous between the brands. However, Vivara stands out with the more complete product assortment, being the most capable of catering among other clusters.
Also, looking to the Brazilian market, we see a very small and insignificant one, with e-commerce done being a disruption.
As to consolidation opportunities, in our analysis we encountered a very fragmented market, reflected by the low levels of the HHI index. Also, we analyzed the biggest jewelry markets around the world, looking at the market share of the respective largest company of each country, and we encountered that Vivara may have reached an upper bound in terms of market share, reflecting low opportunities to consolidate even more in the near future.
It's also worth taking a closer look at the economic outlook. In our studies, we find that there is a high correlation between GDP and jewelry consumption globally, with income being a key driver for the sector. Notably, we see that Brazil is currently facing a challenging macro, with declining confidence from high-income clusters and inflation eroding purchasing power.
Our second pillar relies on Vivara's good strategic positioning, standing out with a vertically integrated business, brand recognition, and also a high-quality product assortment.
To analyze the competition, we developed our own field research where we measure all the factors that impact customer choices. We were able to see that price, quality, and brand recognition is the factor with the best potential to create differentiation between the players.
Also, we created a basket of products in the main brands of the sector, and using web scraping, we could see that Vivara differentiates with the more product assortment.
Also, we noted that Vivara's national presence enhances brand recognition, and also strategic positioning of stores inside the shopping malls is also a differentiation for the brand. Furthermore, high expenses with marketing compared to other peers is also something that we have to take into account.
Finally, looking to localization, we use the KGIS software to understand the geospatial positioning of each brand. We encounter the variety of prices and brand recognition allow also Vivara and Pandora reaching another income bracket in relation to the other brands, since they have stores in lower income per capita places.
To conclude our analysis, we developed our own competitive position scorecard, considering customer preferences and also business characteristics. It's possible to see that Vivara is the best positioned player in the industry, overtaking Pandora and Monte Carlo.
Now, moving on to our third pillar, let's talk about life.
We see that life still has a point to prove, with an insufficient track record, a higher exposition to macroeconomic scenarios, and fiercer competition in the Brazilian retail sector.
In our view, the life expansion comes with some question marks. Once we mapped all possible locations to be open and concluded that from now on, life stores will be located in less productive clusters with a price point targets more susceptible to macroeconomic tailwinds, and finally, an increase in cannibalization.
On the other hand, we recognize that life brings more flexibility, opportunities in e-commerce, and also improvement in cash conversion.
When it comes to competition, however, things are not so rise and shine. Pandora is weakened, and sleep from Brazil may be a sign of the fragility from the sector, with a declining interest from life's most relevant product, bracelets.
So, we believe in a challenging future for life, due to the high competition and the difficulty to keep profitability in lower cluster malls. In addition, by conducting another field research, we see that the real challenge is in the giftable and collectible market, where there's a lack of pricing power and also more dependence on macroeconomic tailwinds. In this scenario, life doesn't hold a strong position.
But how does our thesis translate into numbers?
We believe in a demanding and mostly priced valuation, very reliant on government incentives and also a difficult expansion.
We forecast that Vivara will enter a significant expansion plan in the future, mostly through life, and that this will change store compositions deeply. As new stores mature, we project same-store sales gains. These, we found, are very correlated and sensitive with the Brazilian jewelry market growth itself, and this will return to the natural spread once the expansion plan is over, alongside with marginal gains in market share.
Thus, we forecast a 13.7 CAGR until 2028, driven through new stores and a slight growth in e-commerce. Also, we see a market share not going to sharp gains. Talking about margins, we see a gross margin should rise with silver cogs come from Life's brand. However, EBITDA margin should be hurt by the quick expansion that will increase operational costs. Looking at the capex, we see an increase driving mostly through Life. And in terms of working capital, we see a reduction in the cash and conversion cycle once the lifespan with a lower average price will gain margins.
But how does Vivara tax benefits affect financial results?
To find out, we forecast Vivara's ICMS tax benefits instant on its gross revenue up to 2032 when it's due to expire, and found that it accounts for almost R$1 billion in present value. Not only that, it is a big part of Vivara's profitability, accounting on average for 30% of net income and for 6% in operational margin gains. To wrap it all up, use a discounted cash flow method to value Vivara, using an 11.3% WACC and a 4.8% perpetuity growth rate, reaching a R$25.16 target price, corroborated by our sensitivity analysis, which issued a mostly hold recommendation. With this cash generation, we also forecast that Vivara's dividends payouts will return to its pre-expansion levels in a few years. And for a dividend discount model, we found a R$24.36 target price with a 10.39% upside.
We also analyzed different scenarios in same-store sales, operational stores, e-commerce, and cost, finding an upside of 30% in the bull case and a downside of 11% in the bear case.
But is Vivara cheap compared to its peers?
No, we found that Vivara has been trading in line with the rest of Brazilian retail. Also, our football field put the target price in line with both market valuation and also our transaction comps.
Fine.
Besides that, our Monte Carlo analysis with 6 stressed variables also corroborated with our hold recommendation in 52% of the cases.
Finally, when it comes to risks, we mapped the 3 most important ones, with operational and regulatory standing out. Then, we mapped them in a risk matrix according to how they can shift their phases, upward or downward according to their occurrence.
After, we conducted a tornado analysis and we see a big exposure to the success of Vivara expansion plan.
Wrapping up, reiterate our road documentation for Vivara, backed by its challenging industry, Vivara's good strategic positioning, life's worries, and demand evaluation. Thank you, and I'll work for the questions.
think you guys brought a very original view here, showing that it doesn't seem that this is a good industry, right? Everyone is telling the opposite so far. But again, some of your numbers are similar in terms of gross margins, expansion, EBITDA margin expansion, etc. But why do you think that this is? I think that there are two questions. Why, if you can explain a little bit more, why you don't think this is a good industry, first, and second, do you think that the market share estimates are wrong? I don't know who provides the number, because everyone's saying, okay, the market is it's not very penetrated. There's a huge consolidation opportunity, but no one is telling us where the numbers are coming from, and do you think that the numbers are wrong?
Okay, perfect. So I think I can start answering your question. Well, about Falcon here of our view on the industry. First, we have clear underperforming in relation to the retail sector in the GDP country, mainly because we see these industries as a very discretionary one. So since the income driver is a key for the success of the sector, we see this very dependent on macroeconomic Brazilian's economy. Then, looking here, we see that the growth was most driven through price rather than volume, which indicates for us that it's very dependent still in volume consistency, that we believe that's a key driver if Vivara wants to unlock value. Finally, I just would like to highlight about the watch industry that many of research we have done didn't look to, but Vivara is very exposed. So the revenue composition of this third-party business for Vivara was declining, and we see a very dangerous industry because it's more risky than the others.
Please, Victor, can you put in the appendix the slide about consolidation, please?
And also because you mentioned about the watch industry, and why the watch industry is a good comparison to what you're seeing here.
Okay, so just answer, then I go to the watch industry.
Okay. We see that Brazilian market, in terms of the jewelry market here in Brazil, is not so different in terms of fragmentation than in the other countries. I'm telling you about the biggest one here in the world, UK, China, Mexico, India, and US. So the Brazilian market is not that different of all these other markets around the world, just in terms of total amount. So, but the characteristics itself, they are very similar. And what we encounter in the biggest markets that we analyze is that there is an upper bound of more or less 20% for the market share of the largest companies. So we don't see Vivara with 16% almost market share today, consolidating even more from these numbers that we see around the world. We don't see any characteristics that differentiate the Brazilian market too much from these other markets, that this strong characteristic is going to be set aside here in Brazil and apart from what we see in the rest of the world.
So just complement about the watch industry that you had asked. So it's basically put there because you see Vivara's revenue with 50% of the revenues comes from selling watches. So it's basically, we put that because we also can see our watch industry declining here in Brazil. So we basically do this two comparison because we see they acting in the jewelry market and in the watch market.
Finally, just to complement, we asked Vivara about the third-party business and the contracts involving Gucci, Movado, Otomi, and she did not clarify the terms. So as we see the integrated business as a major competitive advantage, this third part that Vivara does not control the value chain, in our view, it's a major fragile in terms of third party.
I would like to ask you to explore better the expansion plans and why you're so skeptical about it. Because overall, you put the point, and I think that it's an interesting view. But for me, I'm still lacking a little bit more of foundations as of to why you're so skeptical, given that life is a new kind of segment, right? Maybe relating to Vivara brand, I think that maybe they are more or less kept. But for life, I think that it would be nice to explore, because the trends that you gave in terms of gross margin and EBITDA margins are actually very great. And for me, the expansion of the gross margin should come from life. So I'm having trouble to kind of understand how that relates.
Yes, I think the main point that we're putting here is exactly that we analyze a lot of the mall opportunities that both Life and Vivara will have to expand too, and they're not so bright. You see, if Vivara and Life are to keep the expansion rates that they are proposing, that they expect for according to their guidance, they will soon have to enter malls with a lower cluster, with a different income levels that are not in accordance with the levels that are appropriate to the development of their business, which will hurt especially their top line results. With regards to gross margins, yes, we see that there will be a significant gain in gross margins, especially for life shares, but we see, again, that there is this difficulty in forecasting top line growth, that it will be surpassing a lot of what is already foreseen according to the guidance provided by the company.
Basically, talking a little bit more of our methodology, we went to the website from Abrasi, and we literally mapped all the Brazilian malls, and we saw it from income brackets, and also the shopping malls that had and they hadn't any Life and Vivara stores. So basically, the shoppings that there's no Life stores yet are the shoppings with lower income brackets in the most part of its public. So basically, there is some stores they can open, but probably in the next years, what you're going to see is worse results in these opening stores.
Our projections, they are of the stores expansion. They are aligned with the guidance. I think a main key point here of our thesis is that this is already priced in. Thus, we believe that Life and Vivara won't be able to outgrow what they have already projected because of what João said.
And here we simulate what would happen with exposure to each cluster if Lives replicate the guidance given to the company.
Hi, I would like to challenge your view, your recommendation, because it seems to me that at the same time that you have quite a challenging scenario, you actually did use, I'd like to touch on discount rates. You used a 12.3 cost of equity and a 7.5% cost of debt, which seems to be fairly low, especially regarding equity risk premium, which you used 4.3%. So I would like to understand and challenge if you use the more normalized cost of equity and cost of debt, wouldn't you arrive at a conclusion for a sell recommendation?
Yes, actually, we've tested a lot of walk possibilities, and our model is really sensible to the walk variation. Here, I just want to show how was our methodology calculated to understand why they did not use it as Selic free rate or something like this. It was basically the risk-free rate based on treasury yield from the United States. But yes, we could use the Selic free rate, but we see the market using these taxes and very aligned with market estimates. So this is the main reason why you use a lower cost of equity than you thought.
And just to follow up, what specifically are the drivers for the equity risk premium model that you used?
Yes, this driver for the equity risk premium are basically the Modena stable, which measures how the Brazilian market is outperforming our risk-free rate on average and according to the level of risk, which arrives at this 4.27%, which is in general standard measure used by the Modena to measure the equity risk premium of different countries.
A little bit more about corporate governance and the concerns you touched on. What are the major concerns there, and then how the controlling shareholders and the management is aligned with us shareholders or not?
Well, we see governance as a risk. A familiar governance by itself is a risk, and Vivara recognized that, especially through strict regulations in terms of conflicts of interest, especially when we compare to other peers in the Brazilian retail to construct our ESG index. We see that Vivara's conflicts of interest regulations are really more strict than other peers. So Vivara recognized that this is maybe a flaw for the company, and we see this risk materializing by the change in the shareholders agreement after Marcio Kaufman decided to leave the family, and this could have an impact on the stock's pricing due to an overhang in the short term and an increase in liquidity in the medium term. But this indeed affects, and this is a governance matter.
So I'd just like to point this out especially. We think that this recent change in the shareholders agreement clear.
Hello and good afternoon. We're Team 7 from UFSCAR, and we're here to present our initial coverage on Vivara. As a market leader with clear competitive advantages, the company presents key factors such as solid growth history, consolidated balance sheet, and good position to take on market opportunities. With a 38% expected upside supported by multi-color simulations, we start our recommendation with a like.
Vivara is the largest brewery company in the market. Its biggest competitor is 6 times smaller than the company. With a very sorted portfolio and 308 stores, Vivara is capable to serve customers ranging from A+ to B+ class. But how does Vivara make money? Vivara has 5 brands and 3 different stores formats. The company portfolio includes watches, accessories, jewelry, and so on. And when it comes to digital sales, Vivara, during the pandemic, was above average in online penetration, which was in Brazil 9%. This shows that Vivara has great resilience in order to handle with fragile economic scenarios and difficult times. When it comes to national footprint, Vivara has national coverage in all states of Brazil. The 2 biggest presence of Vivara is in the southeast and the south of Brazil, which is the richest regions in the country in terms of GDP. The company has also 4 distribution centers, 1 production plant in the Manaus Free Trade Zone, where it benefits from tax incentives, and also many stores performing as small distribution centers. With all that, we believe that Vivara has a great omnichannel orchestration power. And what about Vivara's sales strategy? Vivara has many competitors' advantages, and the company has many initiatives in order to improve customer experience, such as circular economy, sales via social media, and also benefits for its employees. With all that, we believe that Vivara will continue to be the leader in this market and also consolidating itself in the accessory market as well.
Okay, but how is the industry positioned to grow? Well, first off, industry-wise, the jewelry segment is the biggest segment in global accessories markets. And when we look at luxury markets in general, we notice a characteristic of high-performance resilience that endures even in tough macroeconomic scenarios. This can be traced down to sales track record in Brazil in the jewelry market. And when we look at the future, there are a lot of positive views, especially on Latam and more especially in Brazil, with above average CAGR expectations. And we see that these opportunities can be well perceived by Vivara, as it is the front runner to capture market share and in a highly fragmented industry. Its working capital dynamics and its consolidated balance sheet enabled the company to endure the pandemic and prosper while smaller players lost market share and even increased e-commerce channel sales that became relevant to the company. ESG-wise, the company also excels when we look at local and global players. Key themes for the sector are illegal mining, environmental degradation, bad work conditions. Vivara handles this well, especially due to its KPIs, excellent governance, and circular economy, in which it leads the ranks in Sustainalytics and Bloomberg's ESG disclosure ratios.
All right, so how does this translate into our investment thesis? Vivara is not only a strong player in the jewelry market, but also a company that can outgrow its industry performance. Vivara's track record has shown us they have an efficient business model that can enable them to have a constant growing market share in spite of a market with low growth projections.
And scalability is a key theme for this sector. When we look at global market leaders, all of them present a similar characteristic, a fully integrated and vertical supply chain business model. And when we look at Brazil, the only player in jewelry business that presents it is Vivara. This enables the company to be more resilient, and this resilience allows the company to endure hard times and have adaptability to new challenges, such as the pandemic, and became a leader in e-commerce.
To better understand competition, we mapped Vivara and its peers in all Brazilian regions using Google Trends. The results put Vivara in first place in online searches in 24 states of Brazil, in spite of Vivara stores being mostly located in South Central regions. And yet, Vivara has a brand position stronger than every major peer.
And Vivara's key growth driver is Life's aggressive expansion plan. As Life has a more accessible average ticket, it is able to reach lower consumer brackets and capture market share for other retail players such as others. We conducted a survey with over 200 answers to better understand this, and we concluded that there is a lot of room to grow in these consumer brackets, especially on 25 to 34-year-olds with rising salary.
But do we really think it's possible for Vivara to execute such an audacious expansion plan? Well, first of all, our survey has already shown us that Life target customers are willing to increase their annually purchase in jewelry sector. But it remains one question: is it financially viable? According to our analysis, yes. Our opening source capex is three things, basically. Easy to predict. It's also easy to understand how much it will be spent in this expansion plan. And also, it's cheap. So it costs approximately 14,000 reais per square meter, adding an average of 1 million reais to open a new Vivara or Life store. And adding to that, it really needs a small investment to open a new point of sale, and you can count on a fast payback. The next question is it the right time for the company? We believe so. Vivara is already a really consolidated brand in the jewelry market, and Life presents itself as one of the main growth drivers, counting with higher operational margins than the main business. And finally, one last question. Is Vivara ready for it? Well, let's take a look at the numbers.
Well, with the vast retail sector in the sector, Vivara will elevate itself by speed and expansion, and elevate its margin by Life's penetration growth. But with this, let's see how this translates to money. We project gross revenue based on 40 to 50 stores opening per year, and Life's penetration reaching 40% in 2026. With this, Vivara will reach 710 stores in 2032. We also estimate same-store sales based on a 2-year store maturation, which should increase from last year's and reaching 7%. With this, Vivara will reach 5.7 billion reais in 2032, representing a 16.3% of CAGR. As for margins, when you see COGS, we can assume that the great vertical business of the company should help to decrease that number. But the expansion should pressure a little bit of the SG unit. As for CAPEX, when you see Vivara can open a high number of stores in a high speed, and it still increase this percentage of the net revenues. We also project CAPEX, organic and factory based following IGPM levels, and tech and maintenance following IPC levels. But Bruno, what about our valuation analysis?
We reiterate our buy recommendation with a 38% upside based on the DCF valuation and the forward multiple analysis. As we can see, the most part of value comes from fiscal benefits, adding 70 reais per share. And even sensibilizing or walk in perpetuity growth, we still project gains. Analyzing the peers, we can see that Vivara has a great position in terms of returns and low EV/EBITDA projected for 2023. And looking to historical PE forward, we can see that Vivara is trading near to historical low, cheaper than Brazilian retailer average PE. And we did a Monte Carlo simulation in order to stress our model using some variables such of number of stores to 2026 and days of working capital, reaching a 65% buy case scenarios. Also, we did a bull and bear case analysis, reaching 79% upside on bull case and a 24% downside on worst case.
Helena, what about our risks?
We highlight two risks, the low opening stores and tax benefits. We thank you all for your attention, and we're now open to questions.
My first, thanks for the presentation.
Vocês poderiam deixar deixa um
microfone
de cada lado.
My first question is regarding corporate governance. I mean, what's your opinion on corporate governance, and what are the risks for us as shareholders of Viva?
Well, when it comes to corporate governance,
the company in corporate governance, according to Bloomberg's ESG ratios, it represents a high level of independent directors, which represents that the company is open to different ideas from the market and ideas like that. So we believe that's a positive point about it. And when we look at ESG side, the disclosure of Vivara is a differential for us, especially in Brazil.
Hi, I would like to understand a little bit the valuation for the tax benefits. So if I understood correctly, about 17 reais in your valuation comes from the tax benefit, which is a fairly large amount. Could you discuss the risks of losing this tax benefit and how, if there is anything that the company can do to mitigate those risks?
Okay, so in terms of fiscal benefits, Vivara has two fiscal benefits. So it's ICMS and Canipa's exploration. We actually think that that has a low risk about losing this tax benefits because it represents more of benefits to the region, mainly on Amazon free trade zone area. So we think the perpetuity is okay to assume. Company is not gonna lose it because it would be worse for the territory to lose it. So we think it's a differential for Vivara because it adds something like 15% in terms of margins. So it could explain the number of 17 reais per share added.
If I could just ask you to explore the gross margin evolution and the drivers behind it. I see that you assume that 40% of sales is life in the long term, but even if we assume this mix, like 40-60 with the 80% gross margin of life and 65 of Vivara, you still have like a gap of 400 basis points towards your gross margin. So just trying to understand what's the driver behind this expansion specifically.
Okay, so when you see to the gross margin, we're expecting the penetration of life, as you said. Because when you see like the operational margin of life, it's better than the Vivara one. So even though it's like not the same product, it's like a same different line. When you see the operational of the life is something like 80% versus like 78%, 68% of Vivara. So life is reaching this penetration bigger and bigger over the years. Should help the gross margin. So Vivara is like flattening over the years, like behind 68%, something like that over the 5 years. And the company didn't know how to increase. That's why we research, because there's like some point difference on the choosing another line. as life getting bigger and getting more penetration over the products and over the results, we think like I think the number of stores was something like 50 to 50. So this penetration should increase the gross margins.
But sorry, but if we do this adjustment that you did, like with the 80% for life and the 40% share that you reach, you get like a normalized gross margin of 71. I did here the math. So there's 400 basis points that is not explained by store mix. So I'm just trying to understand where it comes from.
I think when you say the long term as for gross margins, we're expecting the stability of the company and stability of the line, actually. So we think as life having like a new time in the line, like it's not a old in the Vivara line, as the company and as life is getting better and better, improvement, because it's the same company with the different lines, so different places you can put in a different shop and stuff like that. And with this, we think that the moment that Vivara is right now, with its margins like flattening in 68, is going the same for life in the long term. So it's going to improve for the long term.
One question. You have here a chart of return on invested capital and EBITDA. Why do you believe Vivara has a lower return on invested capital than, let's say, Arezzo and a little bit lower than Soma? I mean, a little bit lower than its international peers.
Okay, so in terms of multiples, we see that Vivara is trading a little higher than Brenner, but a little shorter than Soma and Arezzo. But compared to international peers, we see that the ROIC is is shorter than international peers, simply because the international peers are companies like Pandora, are like Hermes, and they are already stabilized companies. They are on already stabilized markets. So it's like Europe, Asia. So we think Vivara is in the near term from it. So it's consolidating, it's building new stores, expanding to the whole Brazil. So we think Vivara may reach this level, such as international peers, but for the moment, historically speaking, the company isn't right there right now.
And just may I compliment, when you are researching the leverage of the companies, specific from the international ones, we see like Pandora has like a really big increase of potential using leverage, using debt and stuff like that. When you see Vivara, it's the opposite of that. We see like a very healthy company which don't have a lot of debt, is really financial healthy. So it's like a really range to work with that. So when you see all of these peers, all of them work as the same. A little bit more of leverage to improve its asset turnover. And when you see Vivara, it still have a lot of room to choose. Even though she's like really healthy, still have place to improve. So to develop your asset turnover and develop the ROIC there. What's your question?
Could you discuss a little bit about M&A in the sector and if that presents an opportunity for you?
Okay, I can start. So about this sector, I think this is a really hard sector when we talk about in terms of M&A, because mainly because of the product that they sell, that is jewelry. They have to do a lot of due diligence in terms of inventories. So we think it's gonna take if a company start a M&A process, it will take a little longer time than the retailer average. So we think it's a slow process, but we think it's possible. But in case of Vivara, the company started to develop a new brand. In the case of this is Life. So we think the companies in general prefer to develop new brands than acquiring acquiring other companies.
Yeah, M&A would be possible. It wouldn't make much sense to do M&A in jewelry business because Vivaro is one of the major brands in Brazil, and brand fidelity is a high factor in the sector, mainly in luxury. But as Vivaro is trying to enter and capture new markets, such as giftable products, and compete with other retail players, we believe M&A, if it happens, would be focalized in this, or in expanding its international activities in the future.
In slide 7, you did an interesting analysis of their categories, and I don't know if you found something there that caught our attention, just showing the split in percentage of revenues. But do you think they are performing well in all the categories they sell, or you found that there was any risk of underperforming?
Good afternoon. We're Team 17 and we'd like to present to you our investment thesis in Vivara. But first, what is Vivara?
Vivara is the largest jewelry company in Brazil, selling 3 lines, being Vivara, which has the largest revenue representation, Vivara Watches, and Life, which sells silver products, is the main expansion channel. About the source, Vivara is present in all regions in Brazil, having a high penetration when compared to other players. In addition, we say that Vivara is partially verticalized, having 80% of our products made in our industry in Manaus free trade zone, which gives the company tax benefits.
Regarding the governance, the company has a good track record in its family-owned management. Recently, there happened a change of CEO, but that we don't see as a problem since Márcio will remain on the board. As for compensation, we see that the interests between the shareholders and the board are aligned, given that 40% of the executive salary is variable. In a segment that the concern about the environment is very high due to illegal mining, Vivara stands out by buying its raw material from Anglo Gold, a certified company. As for the social, the company participates in initiatives as Free, which empowers women.
But is the right moment to invest in Vivara? Yes, we issue a buy recommendation with an upside of 33% based on 3 main points. A unique brand power which will help Vivara act as a consolidation force in a wicked competitive scenario, combined with the promising growth avenues of the company. In order to analyze Vivara's brand power, we first try to understand what are the main factors that impact the consumption decision. So, we elaborated a field research and we concluded that the factor that the most influence the consumer when buying jewelry are the price and the brand, which the company combined both of these aspects. Proof is that we see that the price of its products are neither the most expensive nor the cheapest, attracting the average customer, especially with the company's strategy of being the last jewelry store in the mall to pass on prices.
As a second point, we did 2 studies that comprove Vivara's brand power, one at digital environment and another at physical environment. At digital, we see that Vivara is the leader on share of online traffic and share of search. In relation to physical environment, by using an automate Python code, we see that Vivara has more square meters equipped per store than its main competitors.
Now, let's see the market dynamics. First of all, we believe that the company will act as a consolidation force in the sector, due to a space for consolidation, since 80% of the share are in the hands of the small players, and when we compare the Brazilian sector with the developed markets, we see a significant gap between the share of the top 4 players.
In addition, we see COVID as a game changer in the sector, impacting different ways the players, in which we believe that Vivara is well positioned in this scenario to gain share. As the main point, we see the increase in metallic commodities impacting more strongly the small players, who didn't have inventory and need to repass quickly their prices, impacting their sales volume. On the other side, we see Vivara, with an inventory of raw material for 1 year of production, being able to pass through these commodity cycles without suffering much damage, as we see that in the last 5 years, the gross margin of the company remained constant during these cycles.
Vivara also differentiated itself mainly from the smaller players due to its adaptability to the digital channel. As we can see, the digital revenue went from 9% to 65%. This was due mainly to Joias em Ação program, which made buying jewelry an exclusive experience, fact that was not followed by the rest of the industry.
Okay, we know that Vivara is on the right path to growth, but how will it grow to formalize such consolidation? Through life which is more accessible, Vivara will be able to penetrate new social classes and regions, aided by different store clusters. To measure its expansion, we did a store opening study based on the HDI, GDP per capita and population of the cities that Vivara is already established, to verify which more cities had the same characteristics and Vivara could expand to. That being done, we analyzed all the malls in Brazil individually.
To do that, we did a web scraping code in Python to identify how many of each social class visit each mall. After that, we limited the ABC social class for life and AB for Vivara, which excludes from our study 175 new openings.
Regarding Vivara, we see that we'll have a more challenging expansion due to its already great presence in 38% of the shopping malls today. But we projected a opening of 61 new stores in line with the company guidance of 50% penetration in the shopping malls. Additionally, we also projected the ROIC per new store and mature ones, and we realized that they are both above our cost of capital.
Due to life being in a premature stage, we used Henner as a reference because it's already nationally consolidated, as both of them have similar target audience. That made us reach us more than 300 new stores with 65% penetration in Brazilian malls and also increasing return above the cost of capital.
Moreover, seeing Vivara's strong position in the market and its high potential for cash generation, we believe that the company could do an M&A after the maturation process of its organic growth, in which we see a guy Stern as a strong candidate, given the history of negotiation and the potential synergies could be generated, such as the penetration into a new public. And thinking a little further, we believe in international expansion as a long-term possibility, in which we see Mexico as a good target for this movement.
But how to translate our thesis into numbers?
We use four main assumptions in our top line. First, a marginal store open, then a maturity curve of 3 years for Vivara and Life and 2 years for the kiosks. The third, and same-store sales at a cent check since it grows higher than the sector and inflation. And finally, a revenue per square meter for Vivara and Life.
Making the company reach a total gross revenue of 46 billion in 2022 and a total market share of more than 33%. This will be mainly driven thanks to Life, that will have of this 33% market share by 11% market share. Additionally, we also sensitize our model by an average error of 1% by different mature same-store sales and gross margins. And we see that the stock is more sensitive to a change in the gross margin, again showing the importance of Life, as it operates with higher margins than its core business.
In relation to COGS and SG&A, we have made some assumptions. Starting with COGS, we see a decreasing considering the percentage of revenue. And it's mainly because of the increasing silver products as the company's mix, growing the gross margin.
As for SG&A, we have sensitized our model by projecting the sales expenses mainly related to people and the rent per square meter grow with inflation. As for G&A, we see a dilution, mainly related to the maturation of the stores. In addition, our main assumption is based on the increase of the EBITDA margin, driven by the maturation of its stores and the higher penetration of Life, which has a higher EBITDA for all.
We project a demanding capex due to its aggressive store opening strategy, but that we don't see as a problem given its cash generation capacity. With this, we reach our free cash flow to equity, calculated with a cost of equity of 15% and a growth of 4%, reaching an upside of 30% and a target price of almost 30 reais. With this, we sensitize our growth and cost of equity, obtaining a downside in only one case.
We also took a look at the company's multiples, both historical and forward ones, and compared them with other players from the Brazilian retail market, as well with their ROE. Additionally, to be more assertive of our recommendation, we did an evaluation through an IRR, in which we had a total internal rate of return of 17%. And we also sensitized our IRR through different PEs and different net margins, and arrived in a total IRR above our cost of capital in 55% of the cases.
In addition, we sensitize our model with a bull and bear scenarios. At bull case, with more flexible assumptions and Western M&A, we reach at more than 500 new stores. In the bear case, with more restricted assumptions, we reach almost 400 new stores.
In relation to the main risks of our investment, we highlight three: cannibalization between the life and Vivara, organic expansion below our projection, and the end of the tax benefits, which we regard the exclusion of them in our perpetuity.
Revisiting our thesis, we think that Vivara has a unique brand of power and is in a weakened sector, which is perfect for its expansion mainly by life. Thank you for your attention. We are open for Q&A.
If I could start here.
Vocês podem passar alguns microfones pra gente? Deixar um de cada lado.
Não precisa dois todos, senão você tem que...
Tá bom, tá bom, deu.
Não, vai, tá bom. Obrigado.
If I could start here, I have to. The first, you mentioned that although Márcio left, stepped out from being CEO, it's okay because he's on the board. But recently there was an amendment that kind of points towards him kind of selling his stake. So just wanted to understand your views on that in the corporate government stance. And the other one regarding the M&A, I see that you put Apresentações as a bull case, so positive, I assume. Just wanted to understand your view about M&A and the timing for that. If now they bought Apresentações, would you guys think that that's good? Thanks.
So, about the governance, we see that this follow-on that the company has mentioned, we see with a good eyes, since the Paulo wants to liquidate his equity, and he's not going out to the company, since he stays in the board. So we don't see that the Paulo don't believe more in the company, and it's a normal situation.
Was the second question to understand, right? So we think it's a positive thing, not now because we know that Vivara is a lot of capex is directed through life and expansion mainly. So yes, we do think in a mid-long term is something that would be beneficial for Vivara, mainly because the company has already stated its desire to enter in a higher end brand, and we think that Apresentações is something that would possibility the Vivara can. It would be easier because the company also said that in the future, more long-term growth as well, a expansion for international expansion, and Apresentações would facilitate this as well. But mainly the higher end brand.
One question that I have, you forecast EBITDA margin going from the, let's say, the low 20s to the mid 30 levels. So it's a quite substantial increase, and you forecast that Vivara will have a 33% market share. Is it possible to have a margin expansion and expanding that fast and that much?
So we do believe it's possible, mainly because through life, I think life is a wild card for Vivara because it's a segment that operates with higher margins and have higher turnover as well. So we think that if we can see, put on the slide of market share again, as we said in the presentation, Vivara would reach a market share of, with our projections of 33%. If we consider like the end of 2021 and excluded life from our projections, the total market share of 2021 to 2022 would be just 4 percentage points. So we think that majorly the market share acquired by Vivara would be thanks to life, and for the margin question was thanks to life as well because it's operating very higher margins than the core business of the company.
Can we talk a little bit about?
Can answer about the market share? You said the third. So wait a second. Okay. So in our projection, we consider the Vivara getting 30% of market share, and we see as a possible because different of other markets, we see the Brazilian market have a huge informality, and if we consider the informal market in the total market, we see that Vivara in our projection in the future will have 15% of market share. So we consider is okay market share. He gains. So is that?
I'd like to talk a little bit about your IRR analysis, and for that, I understand that you use an exit multiple, an exit PE multiple of 11.3. How did you arrive at this 11.3 exit multiple, and what's the rationale behind it?
So this was just we compared with mainly Pandora, that is a company with a more mature state and it's global. We understand that comparing global and national companies, it has its difference as well as multiples, but we think that it's comparable because Vivara is expanding its mix through silver. Pandora operates mainly with silver, and it's an already mature state. So we think picking the multiple that Pandora negotiates with would be fair. But we also have some, I wouldn't say doubts, but some points that because it wasn't a strong, a lot of the it was a small majority of the scenario that our IRR was bigger than our cost of equity.
I have a bit of an open question. What you don't like about the company? Or in another way, or what you know that you don't know well enough of the company that you really would have to do a lot more work to feel comfortable with?
So we think that this expansion is going to be big, and the company has never did it before. That's a step that we are passionate about, and we think that it's possible, but it is one point of caution that we consider in our bear case. And in other side, we see that inflation could impact more the company with life, in which in the worst macro scenario, we think that the revenue of the company, mainly driven by the life, could be impacted by this macro scenario of less profit.
Regarding the resilience of the company to the economic cycles, how do you see that? I mean, companies in the consumer and discretionary sector, usually that's very sensitive to economic growth. And when I look at your forecast, I see constant sales growth. I would like to know what kind of assumptions you have for GDP growth and how sensitive the company is to that being such a sector.
Okay, so the main assumption of the deterioration of the macro is in our bear case, and in this scenario, we believe that the slowing down in the volume sales of the jewelry will impact directly on our mature same-store sales. So if we compare with our base case, we see the decreasing of the mature same-store sales, and furthermore, we projection our cities with restrictive parameters, which impact the gross margin, because we see the life expansion will grow up the company's gross margin because he operates in higher margins. So we consider these assumptions in the macro is in our bear case.
So although Vivara target's audience won't be so much affected as life, we translated this in our bear case by restricting our parameters. And when we go to the parameters of Renner, we excluded the last 50% wealthy cities because we think that they have the lower income and we would be more affected.
In your opinion, what's the most important competitive advantage Vivara has?
Based on our study, we identified that the main factors that make some customer buy a jewelry is the brand power and price. And Vivara, due to its higher scale and a big brand power, with a lot of influencers in Brazil being promoting the company, we think that they have a very strong competitive advantage.
In case the main raw material increases faster than expected, gold, in that case, gold goes up too much. What can the company do to minimize that, and how does that compare to what the competition can do?
So we can see this historical and in our projections. I think it was 2015 when the price of gold has risen a lot. Vivara changed its mix for a more silver approach, and the company has also a hedge as well. We can also say about our projections of gross margin, because as silver negotiates with higher markup, we see that by the time the company has more exposure to silver products, the gross margin will grow. So it's more kind of that the company, if the main raw material that is gold, the price increases, the company would adapt its mix of sales.
In terms of the investment in the stock, I understand the case for the company, but are there any triggers for the stock to appreciate? Triggers. Short-term triggers.
So I would say the gas stands expansion and something that's the international. Good afternoon. We are Team 18 and we're going to present our investment thesis on Vivara. Vivara is the biggest player in the Brazilian jewelry industry and is currently 6 times bigger than the second player in the market. The company has a solid track record in stores opening. To achieve those results, Vivara has its own factory in 3 distribution centers to supply its e-commerce and stores. In addition, Vivara uses its omni-channel to potentialize sales. Shifting to the sector, Brazil fine jewelry is expected to grow in a CAGR of more than 6% until 2026, driven by online purchases, sustainable purchases, brand awareness, and silver jewelry.
And who will be the winner in this market? Vivara, with an upside of 32%. So, I will issue our buy recommendation based on 3 main pillars, and the first one being brand position. So in this sector, it is essential for companies to have a remarkable presence on both digital and physical channels. And in this aspect, Vivara has a competitive advantage since the company has 20% more penetration in shopping centers than the second player. Also, Vivara is a winning brand since the company has the best allocation and customer service. In order to understand what is the best allocation, we consider the flow of potential customers in shopping malls and using 3 main criteria. The result was that Vivara has the best location since the company has the smallest distance to the main entrances and the highest frequency of stores on corners.
In order to understand Vivara and INSPER's customer service, we made an analysis in which we simulated the purchase of a jewelry on 15 different stores. The result was that Vivara and Life has the best evaluated among its peers. Vivara's strong brand also leads to growth. In the last few years, even with an aggressive expansion plan, the company was still able to deliver a constant growth in its revenue per square meter. And now, talking about Life, Vivara's silver jewelry brand, Life is already the second biggest player in the industry and was essential for Vivara to reach a new class of customers, increasing its addressable market since Life has a much lower price ticket than Vivara. Also, Life is competing with other retailers as a lower price gift opportunity. And more than that, Life is also reaching Vivara's customers on different moments of purchase, since almost half of the company's clients already bought a Life and a Vivara product.
The second pillar of our thesis is Vivara's physical and digital expansion. To analyze the true potential of Vivara store openings, we conducted a Python analysis using 3 main filters. The potential new city should have at least 100,000 people, and the percentage of the population belonging to the classes A and B in the city should be higher than Juazeiro do Norte. Why Juazeiro do Norte? The city has the lowest classes A and B percentage, and is the lowest city that has a classes A and B percentage and still has a Vivara store. And finally, use larger center store location as a proxy for target malls that Vivara could open its stores. Why? Vivara and Renner have a very similar geographic footprint and drivers that are alike. With all that, we estimate that in 2032, Vivara will be able to open 126 stores in Brazil. As for Life expansion, Life stores are going to open in shopping malls that already have a Vivara up and running, with a 50-50 ratio between both brands in 2032.
And what about the digital channel? Nowadays, 26% of Vivara revenue comes from clients that browse on their website. This synergy leads to Vivara having the greatest share of traffic among its peers. And in order to consolidate its competitive edge, Vivara is investing in its omni-channel operation by transforming stores into distribution centers. Nowadays, 64% of Vivara's stores are already turned into distribution centers. Also, in terms to analyze its omni-channel operation, we conducted a web scraping algorithm to compare shipping price and shipping time for products for Vivara and its main peers. The result was that Vivara is able to deliver 36% faster and 80% cheaper. Finally, e-commerce is a game changer in the sector, and based on the Brazilian digital buy penetration CAGR and the growth needed to achieve the American fine jewelry digital share of 27%, we projected Vivara's digital share achieving 19% by 2032.
Our third thesis is about verticalized operation. Vivara's verticalized operation is able to control their gold inventory, protecting its operation through its periods of crisis. Also, Vivara can hold prices for the long period of time between its peers. Due to its own company, Vivara can produce a higher number of SKUs and collections higher than the average of the market. Moreover, Vivara produces similar designs of jewelry to attain different customer consumption power. But will Vivara be able to have a sustainable growth? Yes. To understand the main issues regarding ESG, we use SAS relevant issues analysis. Out of 26 possible issues, there are 3 more important for Vivara. Based on those and on MSCI's issues, we classify Vivara's solution for them in 5 points: product carbon footprint, governance, labor management, chemical safety, and raw material sourcing. Regarding environmental, Vivara collects jewelry from its customers and generates an immediate credit for them, reducing the extraction of raw material and increasing its life cycle of products. On the social side, it is important to point that 87% of Vivara's employees are from the female gender, and, most importantly, the percentage of female gender in leadership position is more than double the average sector. We also did a Glassdoor evaluation where we can conclude that Vivara's employees are much more satisfied than its peers, showcasing its good social management. Analyzing its governance, the remuneration of its directors a long time was on average 50% variable. And we also did an analysis comparing the board of directors of the 3 main retail companies in point S: independent members, exclusive members, and complementary analysis. Based on this, we can conclude that Vivara is in front of its peers and the leader in complementary analysis.
And finally, how do you translate our thesis into numbers? To estimate Vivara's revenue, you utilize our store opening analysis that amounted for 448 stores opened until 2032. We also established life in Vivara revenue per store, with same-store sales growing according to the market, and a 3-year maturation curve. For the online revenue channel, we expect it to grow with a CAGR of 14%. With that, we can estimate Vivara's gross revenue that will amount for 8.5 billion reais in the end of 2032 with a 12% CAGR. But how the rest of Vivara income statement will develop in the next years? We expect both SG&A and COGS decrease along the years. Why is that? First, Vivara mix will shift towards silver jewelry that has a much higher margin than other products. Also, we expect that as Vivara gains scale, it will be able to dilute some G&A and sales expenses. Without that taken into consideration, we expect that the gross margin and EBITDA margin of Vivara will improve in the next years. But how will Vivara sustain this expansion?
Vivara will increase its capex until 2026. Moreover, the working capital requirements will grow throughout the years, followed by the cash cycle minor improvement. We also projected Vivara's cash flow, and it's expected a negative cash flow in the first 2 years and a positive cash flow in the other ones. Finally, we have free cash flow to firm. We used it calculated by a cost of equity of 16.9% and a cost of debt of 6%, reaching a final WACC of 16.3%. Discounting free cash flow to firm for WACC, we can reach a potential upside of 33%, or a target price of 35 reais. Also, we made a sensitivity analysis, stressing 2 variables, perpetuity growth and cost of capital, WACC, and it was possible to conclude that all simulated scenarios showed us an upside of at least 23%. As futures are uncertain, we made a bull and a bear scenario, stressing some important variables to the model, as COGS, Vivara, and life revenue per store. And through a tornado analysis, it was possible to conclude that none of these variables could bring us to a downside.
But what about multiples? Analyzing Vivara's EBITDA historically, we can see that nowadays they are on its lowest levels. And by comparing Vivara to comparable companies, we see Vivara at an attractive valuation price point, seeing that nowadays it is a great moment to invest in the company.
But in the end, what could affect our thesis? We believe that our thesis could be mainly affected by 4 types of risks: macroeconomics, industry risks, operational risks, and also test risks. And the main risks for each category we believe that are a higher than expected inflation, a rising competitive rivalry, an expansion plan failure, and also losing ECMS tax benefits. But with all that in mind, we believe that Vivara has the right drivers to consolidate the sector, aligned with undervaluated stock price. So that's why we truly believe that Vivara is the real gem in this sector. Thank you for the attention, and now we are opening up for the Q&A.
You comment. When you talk about e-commerce growth, and you have an increased penetration of digital sales, when they open a live store, I imagine the penetration on live or e-commerce is higher than the penetration of Vivara. I don't know if that's correct. But do you think that they need to have 335 stores that they project for live, or e-commerce would be a substantially higher penetration, meaning that they may not need to have all these stores?
Okay, so if you go to the omni-channel of the presentation, please. So we believe that with the stores expansion, Vivara will be able to deliver faster, and one more, please. Yeah, so Vivara will be able to deliver faster and cheaper due to its omni-channel operation. So by opening more stores, the projected days of delivery time will decrease. And yeah, it's true that live products are more relevant on the online arena, but with Jason, so that is a more balanced share.
And also to complement Ricardo, why do you believe that even if that live has a higher penetration of the online channel, it's important to have stores, physical stores? Because as you can see, 64% of Vivara stores are already used as a distribution center. So when you open more live stores, you have more distribution centers, mini distribution centers that can use it locally. So when you open live stores physically, you can also increase its efficiency on the digital channel, delivering faster and cheaper.
Could you explore a little bit the corporate governance of the company? How good it is or how bad it is, and what the risks are?
So the Vivara governance is well structured, having a complementary board of directors, which have independent members, exclusive members, and a good diversity. About its executive directors, we have executive directors that are known in the market, and also 1 month ago, Vivara has grown his liquidity of shares in the market in 13% by the following. So this is good because it's a family business, and its shares, its founder family has more than 50% of its shares. So with this movement, we can have a more good governance.
Regarding, you mentioned that Vivara would trade to silver, which yields a higher margin. Don't you think that can hurt the brand or the brand positioning, which is one of your recommendation supports?
No, we don't think that, because as you can see, go to the live slide, please. As you can see, Life and Vivara are two different, mainly different brands, and Vivara has disassociated its brands from Life. And actually, as you can see here, no, not this one, in the presentation. As you can see, Life stores are actually a new growth avenue for Vivara. We won't hurt its brand because it has a totally different position than Vivara.
Okay, just a follow-up. Do you think Life and Vivara can cannibalize itself, or Life can cannibalize Vivara?
No, actually, the last number of cannibalization that the CFO of Vivara told in the third quarter of earnings calls was 4 or 3%. So the cannibalization between both brands is really low, and with Vivara disassociating its brand from life, we can have two different growth paths for Vivara in the next years.
Moreover, we don't believe there is a risk. Why? Because if you look at Vivara's customers database, most of their clients are already live clients. So if you look at exclusive Vivara clients, it's half of the number of live clients. So that's why we believe that won't hurt the operation, because nowadays live clients represents more than Vivara's clients on its customer database. So the shifts already happened and did not prejudicate the brand, Vivara's brand.
Regarding the weighted average cost of capital that you use, it struck me that you have quite a different rate between cost of equity and cost of debt. Despite that difference, the company still funds its operation mainly with equity. Would it make sense, in order to diminish the weighted average cost of capital, for the company to issue debt and execute a buyback, for instance?
Well, it's true. The average, the calculated WACC of Vivara has a lot of equity, but as we saw in the last few years, Vivara, since its IPO, have a negative net debt EBITDA and haven't leveraged itself that much. So, for our projection, we thought that it would be more wise to use what Vivara has been doing in the recent years. And actually, Vivara's operation generates a lot of cash. So we didn't see the necessity to get more debt, but yeah.
Moreover, looking for the track record for the company and the guideline, we can see that debt is only to working capital operation. So we don't see that it doesn't make sense to get more debt to pay its organic expenditure or something like that. Like to pay the working capital operation, it's enough.
And just complementing Carlos Augusto, Vivara has a tax benefit because he has the company, the factory in the zone of Negros de Manaus, and with that, Vivara cannot distribute the whole net profit that he has into dividends. So we have a cap for distribution of dividends. So I don't think it would make sense for Vivara to get the debt to distribute for its shareholders.
Could you just explore margin expansion? You kind of expand a lot gross margin, which makes sense given mix, but the EBITDA margin follows and even expands higher, even in the short term, given the expansion plan. Why?
Can you go to the SG&A 16, please? Okay, so the SG&A is being highly impacted mainly by the gains of scale. We projected a reduce of 0.1% each year, and our thesis by that is that the freight is going to reduce because a more unit sold means a less average paid per unit for transportation, and also there are other expenses in the last few years that is expenses that is not part of the operation of the company, and we think it's like outlier cost and is not it doesn't make sense to project these other expenses to the next years, to the perpetuity into 2032.
I agree that in the midterm, but I'm thinking about the short term, because if you look at like 2023, you already expand like 300 basis points. And if you look at the last quarter, they're being hit in the EBITDA margin because you open the store and it takes a while to mature, right? So I agree with you in the freights, but rentals, personnel probably will pressure in the short term given the expansion plan.
Sure, but the short term, it's the period that they will open more stores, and the group believe that more stores mean more gains of scale, and so we believe the Vivara can reach the EBITDA margin that we are projecting.
I'd like to ask you about execution risk, because you forecast a huge increase in number of stores. How and why do you think the company can mitigate and can really deliver, in fact, margin expansion while more than doubling or maybe tripling the amount of points of sales?
So when you look to the possibility of an expansion plan failure, we really believe that a risk that the company could face it. But due to its record and the last year's record of store openings and their governance that we said that we believe that is really good, we don't believe that the company will suffer from this. Also, but with that in mind, we're mitigating this risk and we are looking at numbers with possible different numbers of store expansions. And we believe that our test would be highly impacted if the company opened less than 400 stores. That we don't believe that is going to happen. We believe that's not accurate.
Environmentally, what are the main risks? I mean, you address the risks with the fines, but what about the suppliers? How does the company minimize the risk with the suppliers dealing with such a sector like mining, which is very sensitive?
So regarding environmental risks, we have the risks of raw material sourcing and some social risks in its mines. Vivara has one certificate that she's the only company in Latin America of mining insurance. That's IRMA, and that assegurates a good governance environment.
Pessoal, boa tarde. A gente vai anunciar aqui os vencedores. A competição foi bastante perto, vocês devem ter reparado que do momento que a última equipe saiu até o momento que a gente chamou vocês, demorou um tempinho. Alguns pontos que eu quero chamar a atenção para vocês, pensando nesse ano, pensando na vida profissional de vocês, e quem estiver assistindo a gente em 2023, já pensando para a competição do ano que vem, procurem fazer bastante análise proprietária, análise crítica, para gerar valor, né, na apresentação de vocês, fundamentar sempre a apresentação. Vou passar aqui a palavra para os juízes e em seguida a gente anuncia os vencedores.
Bom, boa tarde, obrigado aí a todos, né, por estarem aqui. É muito bacana ver o comprometimento de vocês, né, o tempo que vocês dedicam ao challenge e a maneira como vocês fazem as apresentações também. Para a gente sempre é um trabalho muito difícil, né, fazer essa diferenciação entre as várias equipes. Eu acho que todos foram muito bem. A gente levou até um tempo maior que o normal aqui para chegar a uma conclusão de como fazer esse ranking, então não é fácil para a gente estar aqui também, mas parabéns a todos aí. É sempre muito gratificante a gente assistir vocês aí no começo de carreira fazendo um trabalho tão bem feito assim, né? Um trabalho que eu colocaria a nível profissional mesmo. Tem muito trabalho que a gente vê aí de gente do mercado já trabalhando e que está principalmente no sell side, né, fazendo um trabalho semelhante, que a qualidade é basicamente a mesma que vocês apresentaram aqui, alguns aqui até melhores do que muitos sell side por aí, acho que eu posso dizer, né? Também. Então parabéns de novo. Assim, em termos de carreira, para quem quer fazer carreira no mercado financeiro, eu vou estressar de novo assim, a importância do CFA, né? Eu acho que o CFA é muito importante. Me abriu muitas portas, no meu caso em particular, né? Como o Gustavo falou no comecinho, assim, eu fui o 5º CFA do Brasil, né? Hoje a gente tem mais de 1.500. Já faz algum tempinho que eu tirei o CFA, apesar de ser jovem, né? Mas faz algum tempinho já. E me abriu muitas portas. Eu trabalhei em várias casas do Brasil, trabalhei em várias casas ao redor do mundo, e acho que muito graças ao CFA. Então eu realmente recomendo que vocês façam o CFA, se pretendem ficar no mercado financeiro, né? O mercado financeiro, eu acho que é onde eu passei toda a minha vida, né? 30 anos de mercado financeiro, e sempre também foi muito gratificante. Eu acho que apesar do fato que a gente não produz um prego, né, nem constrói uma ponte, mas a gente aloca capital, né? Eu acho que a alocação de capital é uma tarefa muito importante, né? Determina para que lado vai a economia, determina se a produtividade de um país ou de uma região vão crescer ou não, determina quem vai ser bem remunerado por agir de maneira correta do ponto de vista de ESG também. Então a alocação de capital, apesar de não produzir um parafuso, ela tem um papel muito importante, né? Então é importante que a gente tenha bons profissionais, com consciência ética também, de governança, alocando esse capital. Então acaba sendo um trabalho também muito bonito e contribui bastante para o crescimento de um país e da economia global, se feito de maneira correta.
Então, eu incentivo todos a seguir nessa carreira também, e o CFA sempre abre essas portas. Então, de novo, obrigado, parabéns, e obrigado pela presença de vocês todos aqui. Vou passar para o Fontoura. Obrigado.
Pessoal, queria dar meus parabéns para vocês. A decisão de participar de uma competição dessa, investir o próprio tempo, investir a dedicação, esse eu sei o trabalho enorme que vocês colocaram em passar por tudo isso, e apresentação, relatório, etc. E, né, vamos ter dois representantes aqui, duas equipes que vão continuar nessa jornada. Então, assim, é uma responsabilidade muito grande que vocês estão levando, mas é uma admiração muito grande que eu tenho pela iniciativa que vocês têm de vir aqui, se expor, passar nervoso. Isso aqui é fantástico, só mostra pra gente, para vocês também, que vocês têm um comprometimento profissional, que vocês têm tudo, vocês têm os valores do CFA, né? O CFA é esse compromisso com a evolução constante do conhecimento. Então, naturalmente, acho que o caminho para vocês é seguir, né? Buscar o CFA. Como toda competição de alto nível, a gente estava até brincando aqui há pouco, uma analogia com a Fórmula 1, como toda competição de alto nível, a diferença se dá nos detalhes, né? Você tem gente muito competente, fazendo coisa muito boa. Então, quem não tiver em primeiro e segundo colocado, quem não for classificado, não ache que não foi porque não fez um bom trabalho. A gente vê a dedicação que vocês têm para fazer tudo isso, mas realmente a diferença está nos detalhes. Então, uma coisinha ou outra, um pace de apresentação, o ritmo ali de entregar as ideias, de concatenar as ideias de maneira mais calma, mais tranquila, isso aí faz diferença. Então, saiba que a diferença é muito pequena, é difícil para nós, foi bem difícil para nós tomar essa decisão final. E acho que a última mensagem que eu gostaria de deixar é lembrar que o campo, o desenvolvimento acadêmico do mundo das finanças, da economia, ele está sempre em desenvolvimento. Então, nunca achem que o conhecimento é estático. Nunca deixem de ter sede de pensar as coisas de maneira diferente, de pensar, poxa, será que essa maneira de fazer valuation está legal? Será que essa metodologia está interessante? Será que os assumptions, né, os modelos, eles têm assumptions por trás? Questionem os assumptions, questionem se aquilo faz sentido, tá? Porque vocês fazem parte aí da elite do pensamento econômico, financeiro, naturalmente, a evolução de vocês é essa, e cabe a nós evoluir o conhecimento. Então, lembrem que vocês têm esse papel para desempenhar, tá bom? Parabéns.
Bom, eu vou ser um pouco repetitiva, mas primeiro eu quero só falar que essa é a minha primeira vez como judge, então estou muito feliz em ter participado. Eu até estava pensando, enquanto o Luiz estava falando, que eu sou sell-side de varejo e eu analiso o Vivara, eu falei, espero que eu não esteja nesse que tá dos melhores do que o meu e a minha análise, mas assim... Nossa, obrigada. Brincadeiras à parte, assim, é até muito legal, porque eu até fiquei brincando ali com o Gus, eu falei, pô, tem várias coisas que me fizeram pensar diferente, né, na minha própria análise de Vivara. Eu não vou, obviamente, cometer plágio, né, a CFA não permite, mas é inspirador ver todas as análises de vocês, então acho que isso é legal, e isso acho que é o papel do analista, né, a gente, principalmente no sell-side, nosso principal papel é provocar um pensamento. Às vezes você pode trazer um pensamento que a pessoa discorda, mas só de você trazer isso com um fundamento, eu acho que você já agregou valor. Porque aí a pessoa olha um outro viés, fala, pô, legal, mas eu discordo desses pontos, mas já trouxe essa diferente forma de pensar. Então também eu acho que é legal, talvez, trazer esse ponto, né, de às vezes trazer um viés diferente. Também um outro ponto que eu acho que é legal é a criatividade, né, eu acho que também é um ponto que eu gosto de ser analista, e no seu site especificamente, é tentar ser criativo, tentar pensar em formas diferentes e às vezes fugir um pouco do óbvio, né? Então a gente até também estava falando, como eu analiso varejo, eu faço muita análise qualitativa, de olhar a loja, enfim, de ver o que as marcas estão fazendo, campanhas, para tentar às vezes pegar o feeling do consumidor, né? Então também acho que dá para ser criativo além da planilha do Excel. Obviamente no Excel dá para ser muito criativo, tem muita análise a ser feita e tem muito valor, é importante também. Mas acho que isso também é uma coisa legal. E aí, só um último comentário em relação a abrir as portas do CFA. Eu só acho que a novinha aqui do Judge, mas eu já estou há 10 anos no mercado, tenho 5 anos já o CFA, mas também eu reforço o ponto de que o CFA ele abre muitas portas. Eu acho que ele é um selo no final do dia, ele mostra o comprometimento, acho que você tem que se dedicar para tirar ele, você tem que, acho que, ter resiliência, né, assim, independente, você tem que saber estudar. Então, eu acho que também vale a pena, e eu até extrapolaria um pouquinho além do mercado financeiro. Eu acho que no mercado financeiro a gente tem maior valor, de fato, acho que é onde é maior valor percebido, mas eu vejo muitas vezes empresa que a pessoa trabalha em finanças e tem, todo mundo olha e fala, nossa, tem CFA. Então, é um selo em qualquer lugar. Então, eu acho que assim, independente. E eu também acho um último ponto, é que é uma certificação que é uma que eu tirei várias por conta de, enfim, tem que tirar CNPI, CGA, eu passei por algumas áreas, CPA 20. É uma certificação que você sente que está te agregando valor. Assim, são coisas que fazem sentido e que você usa no dia a dia. Então, eu acho que isso também é muito bom, porque você estuda coisas que você usa na prática. E aí reforça o ponto de que é um estudo contínuo, que o Fontoura falou. A gente nunca sabe tudo. Hoje eu já aprendi com vocês também, apesar de já estar analisando a Vivara há muito tempo. Então, acho que, enfim, também queria parabenizar, foi muito legal. E também agradecer, porque foi super bacana participar.
Bom, é difícil falar e também não ser repetitivo, mas falar alguma coisa diferente aqui depois de vocês escutarem dos três visões bem interessantes aí do mercado. Para mim, o que eu acho que é legal desse evento é que é um contínuo aprendizado. Quando eu entrei no mercado financeiro há 20 anos, no sell-side, a gente mandava o relatório por fax. Então, vocês já imaginam como esse negócio evoluiu, né? Veio e-mail, veio um monte de coisa, era Excel, planilha, falava com a empresa e parava por aí. Acho que o que é mais interessante hoje é que as análises proprietárias são muito fortes. Antes das proprietárias vem esse Monte Carlo Simulation, que talvez uns 10, 15 anos atrás era a última sensação do mundo, né? E hoje está lá, é importante, mas é um slide de vocês todos aqui. E nos últimos anos você começa a ver a evolução dessas análises proprietárias, que começam com as pesquisas que a gente já faz, e vocês fizeram, vários de vocês fizeram pesquisas com o consumidor para entender o que o consumidor pensa da Vivara, mas agora o que a gente percebe é que é Python, é usar muitas das ferramentas do Google, e está evoluindo. E isso, assim, se você pegar os relatórios de 2, 3 anos atrás, já eram, estava começando com isso, algumas análises, geoespacial, aqui e ali, e esse negócio continua evoluindo, né? Então, o que eu vejo, pegando também um pouco o que a Dani falou, uma combinação qualitativa, quantitativa do básico, Excel, análise bem elaborada de financial statement analysis e todo o outro arcabouço que está sendo desenvolvido de análise de data analytics e que vocês estão usando, todo mundo usando Python e buscando ferramentas que estão disponíveis aí no mundo público ou primário, né, análise primária ou secundária. Então, isso é muito interessante, essa evolução. Mantenha isso em mente, mas acho que no final, o elemento humano, aquela análise qualitativa final, aquele julgamento de valor vai ser muito importante. Então não perca isso também. E a gente percebeu hoje que tiveram análises excelentes, que faltou uma análise crítica final, que era um elemento humano. Então acho que isso foi continua sendo muito importante. Tá? Então o básico da gente olhar e fazer análise crítica do lado humano ainda é muito importante. Ainda mais quando você está falando em consumo, né? No consumo, análise desse setor de consumo, que também foi onde eu me especializei, o elemento humano, o teu gut feeling faz muita diferença. Tá? Então eu queria deixar essa mensagem para vocês e também reforçar o lado do CFA, que também me ajudou muito na carreira. Eu fiz MBA, fiz o CFA, é bem diferente, se vocês tiverem dúvida, a gente pode conversar, mas o CFA ajuda a abrir as portas, te dá algumas confirmações de reputação e mostra o quão interessados vocês estão na carreira. Tá? Acho que vale a pena mesmo investir. É isso. Obrigado.
Vamos ao que interessa.
Vamos ao que interessa, é isso aí.
Obrigado, pessoal. Vou terminar aqui agradecendo a Joana, aqui do BTG Pactual. Joana, de novo, obrigado por nos receber aqui. Obrigado mesmo. Luana, muito obrigado. Tudo isso e mais um pouco que vocês estão vivenciando aqui no Challenge foi a Luana que carregou, criou, desenvolveu, implantou. Trabalhou demais nos últimos 4 meses. Obrigado, Luana. Pessoal, então vamos lá, é a parte mais importante. Eu vou anunciar o 5º colocado, 4º, 3º. E depois os 2 vencedores, em ordem alfabética, tá bom? Mas todos aqui são ultra vencedores, porque o resultado foi fantástico. Vamos lá, sem mais delongas. 5º colocado, FGV 23. Parabéns, FGV. Quarto colocado, INSPER. Parabéns, INSPER. Momento importante. Terceiro colocado, Unicamp. Parabéns, Unicamp. E agora, os dois vencedores da etapa brasileira, em ordem alfabética, FGV e USP. Parabéns. Parabéns para todo mundo, para todas as 8 equipes que vocês já participaram do segundo Challenge Research, segundo CFA Research Challenge mais difícil, mais concorrido do mundo. Então, parabéns, pessoal. Parabéns a todo mundo. Obrigado, gente. Até 2023. E os troféus aqui, obviamente, primeiro, para os dois vencedores, terceiro e quarto colocados, pessoal. Obrigado. Vamos tirar fotos. Judges, muito obrigado pelo tempo de vocês.